the day, what we're talking about is athlete marketing. It's been around for over 100 years. So I'm going to play a quick video here just to kind of give you a sense of really what this is about.
And with that, the 2023 season comes to an end.
Hold on. I need some food. Do you mind if I place an order on Postmates?
Frederick Richard, Michigan gymnast, also known as Frederick Flips.
My name is Landon Hatchett. I play for the University of Washington, and the Center Stack is my fan cave.
Hey, I'm Cade McNamara, quarterback for the Iowa Hawks.
I got the cookie butter cold brew from Dunkin'.
This is a pie for sure. Oh, there we go. That's so good.
And here we are. This is where all the magic happens.
Don't underestimate the ostrich. The big Yeti. Long arms, lengthy stroke.
Alright, so let's do some introductions here. So I'll start with Amy Hanna, Vice President of Brand Marketing, Kendra Scott, Justin Johnson, Head of Market Development at Acorns, Ashwin Nathan, Head of Marketing at HEB, and Lisa Hannusch, the Board Advisor and Head of Strategic Engagement at the Texas One Fund. Thank you all for being here. So Amy, let's start with you. As a multi-generational brand, you have a lot to juggle and balance, right? Several things. Your team has done an incredible job leading into the influencer space. Talk to us a little bit about your collegiate ambassador program, what it entails, and the why behind it.
Thanks so much for having me. Our ambassador program consists of over 400 college students and athletes. We leverage them on an ongoing basis, whether they're philanthropic voices, they help us with brand activation, hosting events in stores, leveraging them as social media influencers, so this goes on and on. Obviously, we know that the Gen Z voice is so incredibly important, not only to our brand, but our culture. So we really leverage them for an authenticity factor. And they bring so much to the table, bring new ideas, and really credibility. The Gen Z customer is so incredibly savvy. So we leverage them to make sure that we're hitting the market and that we're spreading our voice and making sure that we're leveraging the brand in the right ways and the right channels.
Kudos to your team, because managing 400 student athletes is, and not just student athletes, but students in general, is just incredible. So congrats to you guys.
They're all right for us.
Raise your hands. Come on, that's a nice. Love that. Justin, so with revenue share kicking in next year, where I'm sure everybody here is aware of it, but $22 million per Power 5 school is going to be distributed to student athletes. There's going to be an incredible amount of generational wealth that is created. Not many of these student athletes are going to go pro, and this will be the most amount of money they ever receive in their lifetime. So what is your approach to, and then talk to us about your approach to financial literacy education and your role in that, and how you want to help student athletes moving forward.
Yeah, so I think the question and kind of what I'm alluding to, or will, is on the topic of financial literacy. So I think for me, the irony is I have a corporate finance degree. I never learned personal finance in college. And I find that paradox kind of hard to accept. And I think now that I have 2 children, one will be 3 next month, and then one will be 7 months next week, I think about their future. So embedded in this question is really around the fact that we have a unique opportunity to educate, empower, and inform the masses at scale, irrespective of background or education. Financial literacy is something that impacts everybody. When you think about finance is personal, right? And so it can mean different things to you, our relationship with money. And so for us, present day, throughout the last semester, we are across right now 20-ish different universities from East Coast to West Coast, UT Austin being one of them, where we actually have physical and virtual presence on these campuses to raise awareness around what we offer as a company at Acorns, but then also provide financial literacy to provide a minimum foundation to understand what money means, what it can mean for you, and getting started early, getting started often, and not necessarily waiting for the biggest check in your life to get started. And it's not about how much money you're making, but it's how much money you're saving along the way to give yourself the best shot at potential future wealth. And so I think the things that really we're targeting and really focusing and keying in on is the idea that we really want to change the relationship and conversation around money. Because to date, it's still very taboo. Like, you don't necessarily go to someone and just ask them, quite honest. I mean, maybe on TikTok you see some of these videos of like, man on the street, like, tell me how much is in your bank account. The vast majority of people aren't going to tell you the truth, right? And it's not to say that's what we want to get to, but I think the reality is, it's how do we strengthen the relationship with money, and how do we do that in an effective way that people can actually understand, versus be more confused when they take a course or get some information. They're leaving with more questions than answers, and we want to really debunk that.
That's super helpful. This wasn't something that I prepped you with, but I'm going to ask you as I'm thinking about it. Talk to us about how important it is to have people who are their peers sharing that information versus someone who looks old like me.
You don't look, at least not from up here. I just think it's important when you think about trust and community as it pertains to something that's so personal to us all, right? When you look for recommendations for whether it's health, money, and things of these natures that are very close to you in topic, you ask your others who have maybe been through it, are going through it, will likely go through it, to get their unofficial expert opinion of what we call life and how that can be applied to your life. And so when I think about that, it's a really unique opportunity to really just educate the masses. And what we're trying to go towards and to is enabling, educating, and empowering 100 million individuals to get smarter as it pertains to investing, spending, and budgeting, irrespective if they're using Acorns or not, because we know this is a big gap that we can help contribute to, but doesn't necessarily mean the only way to do that is through us, but we want to be an enabler of that to help across the board.
Love that. Ashwin, HEB's had athlete partnerships with Victor Wembanyama, JJ Watt, but talk to us about your partnership with Texas volleyball star, student athlete Maddie Skinner, right? Women's sports are finally receiving the respect they deserve, growing at an exponential rate. But what else from a core value perspective was important to you as you went through your selection process?
Yeah, so I think it's important to start with the context. As you said, we'll work with Victor, Joe Duncan, JJ Watt, Altuve, the greatest in their sports. But for HEB, I think it starts with the business context, right? So we tailor everything that we do. No single HEB store is alike, right? Every HEB store across Texas you go to, there are differences because we tailor to the community. So if you take that approach, we've had the Spurs in Austin, Spurs in San Antonio, we have the Texans and Astros in Houston. So when it came to Austin, we were thinking about, okay, who in the past would have just said, okay, we'll just use the Spurs, right? And that really does not work anymore, because this new generation of customer, the younger customer, is not as much in love with some of these athletes as we otherwise think. So when we were thinking about, okay, who's the right person, the right athlete that we should partner with in Austin, like Madison Skinner, no doubt it came to mind immediately, because in my mind, look, I've followed Longhorn sports for 25 years, right? In my mind, she's right up there with Vince Young and TJ Ford and Kat Osterman and some of the greats of the greats. So first, she is a three-time national champion, going for her fourth. So she is by far, one of the best athletes, not female athletes in college sports today. So that helped. I think second, with all the names that you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned a female name thus far, right? So I think it was time for us to say, okay, it's not just about getting young kids and young boys excited about these male athletes that we work with, and they're all incredible at what they do. And it's important that I have a 9-year-old daughter. If I think about who gets her excited as she watches, Katie Ledecky or Simone Biles or Madison Skinner, it's important for us to really look at representation from a female athletic standpoint, a female athlete standpoint. And when we said, okay, we want to go with the female athlete, again, there's really nobody I would pick over Madison Skinner. It also helps that Madison Skinner grew up in Houston. She grew up shopping in our stores, so she knew what H&E was. So it was important to find a partnership that was authentic. And then she's an incredible person, and then she fit with our brand. She cares about the community. So she's a superstar at what she does. She grew up knowing us. It was a good fit with what, from a brand standpoint. And luckily she happens to be in Austin, in a market where we don't have a professional athlete. And she was the best athlete for us in this market.
Love that. A couple of mentions so far of authenticity, just so everybody note that. Lisa, good to see you. Lisa is earmuffs to Opendorse's other collective partners, but Texas One Fund is the gold standard in the country, and they do it at such an incredible high level. Lisa, you and your team have your finger on the pulse of the athletic department, right? So talk to us and educate us a little bit about the benefits of working directly with Texas One Fund, and ways that you can improve and remove friction, and what are the benefits of working directly with a brand in their activation?
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been listening all morning long with all the exceptional content that's out there, and from all of the experts that are in the room. And there's a couple things that have been really empowering to me to think about, whether we're talking about analytics in this space, or we're talking about the growth of women and how women's sports are taking over in a lot of different markets, or the importance of how do you use AI. It's a differentiator at the end of the day. How do we make a differentiation for our product, for your product? And one of the ways that we really work with our brand partners and our fulfillment and entities that are here today is that we have a model where each of our head coaches picks their NIL captain. The coach says, here's the person I trust, here's the person that I want to work with, and this is the one person who has access to our team. Texas One, I actually serve as the captain of all the captains for this, in that we are trying to coordinate everybody's schedule, ensuring that the priorities make sense. These athletes are student athletes. They have a lot of classes to attend. They miss their classes, they miss their tests. They have to make that up because they're traveling. What their preparation and their cycle is so intense that to make sure that we don't lose sight of why they're here and what is important, it's critical that we have that inside working knowledge. So that's point one, is just the coordination of it. Point two is around where is this opportunity that athletes have to monetize their name, image, and likeness? We all have that opportunity, and if we weren't a student athlete, a student had that opportunity. The law that changed just allowed a level playing field. They have the ability now to make money off of being a celebrity. And at UT, there's a lot of celebrities. We have 575 student athletes. Sarah talked about the power of our brand and how many different awards we win, how many different top teams that we have, and what our scores are across the nation as a brand. What we do at Texas One is that you're not just getting one creator, one influencer, you're tapping into the ability for you to work with our brand. So the power of our brand for Texas One to be able to amplify that, to be able to maximize it, and to make sure that, like someone said, very few athletes are going to go pro. I think the statistics say it's fewer than 2%. 2% of 575 athletes. So the pro is where there's definitely big opportunities. Everybody is striving for that. They want to be one of those top professional athletes that you mentioned, and being the next Jose Altuve. Whatever that is what they're driving for every day. What's happening in the space of athletes being able to make some money off of their celebrity status is that we are being transformational. And being transformational is a pillar of success in their opportunity here at UT is getting into what Justin talked about. It's a generational wealth issue, but not taking that lightly. And I have a video that we'll show in just a second of the power of what we are creating, a different opportunity for our student athletes to grow and succeed and become part of a bigger picture, and making sure they understand how this is using something in a very authentic way. How can they be successful in representing their sport and representing themselves? So it's not hiring an influence, it's not hiring a marketer, it's not hiring the person with the most TikTok followers or Instagram followers, it's hiring the person as part of this brand that can make the biggest difference in an authentic way.
You tapped on a couple of things, or touched on a couple of things that we talk about all the time, and say things like, athletes have influence, but they're not influencers. And so, an influencer, you can give them a brief, they know exactly what to do, they're going to be responsive, and student athletes, they're students, they're athletes that can train, travel, etc. But when they say the right thing, right place, right time, they have superpowers. The engagement is through the roof, and I think that's what you help and to tap into that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that they are influencers, they're heroes, they're celebrities in this niche that they call the sport that they're playing. But as you use the term of an influencer, they don't have the acting background and marketing degree. Some of them might be achieving that, but one of the things that's so critical is how do you tap into something where they are going to influence the market that they care about and that market that cares about them. So there's people that care about Texas football, Texas volleyball, Texas basketball, Texas Longhorns. Trey talks about the power of that brand is bigger than a lot of other brands in the nation. Or we travel internationally and we see people throw up horns and everybody knows what that means. I mean, it's a powerful brand, and how do we tap into these athletes that are representing your brand in that authentic way that attracts the people that love the bird orange?
All right, I'll stick with you here before we come back to the brand marketers here. So when working directly with brands, what are the ideal types of relationships or activations that you're looking for?
That's a great question, because it's looking at, I've said that word many times, authenticity. But you're looking for the people that love your brand and who can represent that brand. Who wants to use Acorns? Who wants to shop at H-E-B? Who wants to wear Kendra Scott? And whatever that is, you're looking at that influence that that athlete has carrying the Longhorn brand. So I think that that's important. But more importantly, it's also, you look at the give back to the community and how do you want your brand represented within a community, and attaching that into our athletes and the power that our athletes bring in the community, I think is super powerful. So it's, do you care about sports? Every brand that represents, and you can see logos around our stadium, you care about sports, you care about making a difference in the lives of the people that are watching the sport, and our athletes are the ones that are fulfilling that dream for you to be able to watch this. So I think it is people, the brands that care about sports marketing, that care about athletes, that care about generational wealth and success and how to make people and better in the community is probably the best authentic connection.
We have people in this room who can get behind that, absolutely. So with the long overdue wave of attention that women's sport is now receiving, how is Kendra Scott looking to support that wave going into 2025?
Well, I think we have the low-hanging fruit and the obvious answers. More influencers, bigger campaigns, integrating these female athletes into other campaigns besides just game day year over year. But I think it goes back to this idea that Justin mentioned, which is literacy. And it's empowering these women. And how can we take where you focus on financial literacy? We have the opportunity to teach these women and all athletes how to build their own personal brand. And so think of a better person than Kendra herself to leverage the power of our channels, of her channels, our brand's voice, and to empower these women to build their own brand. And so I think with our partnership with Welly, we call the because it's a mouthful, but Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at the University of Texas, and through valuable partnerships like this, how do we build that into our curriculum and really give these women the tools for, yes, their college career, but also beyond.
Love that, because it's not just about leveraging their following, it's about supporting. It just changes the dynamic, so love that. Justin, Acorns is the leader in the category and is the person responsible for focusing on specific markets. Talk to us about your current efforts in the college space and why you plan to expand them next year.
Yeah, so when we think about our key demos that are strategic to the company, it really boils down to two. It's essentially 18 to 24-year-olds, which overlays nicely with college students, but that's like our early investor segment. And then it also layers into parents with children under the ages of 13, right? So there are some parents in college, not the vast majority, but there's an overlap between the two. And so when I think about what we're currently doing this year, we're around 20-ish different campuses coast to coast this semester. As I look ahead into 2025 and beyond, it's how do we continue to scale that and go from 20 to 5x that to 50x that and continue on. And so our plan currently is to look at expansion into the spring across many more schools that we're not currently at and get us closer to the triple-digit number, and then that's for 2025 for the spring, continue moving forward. But then even more broadly as it pertains to essentially athlete marketing and leveraging these student athletes that have a following, that have influence, it's something that we haven't tapped into yet, but will as we plan to continue to elevate and activate on campus, both again, virtually as well as in person. And so one of the unique things we did, if you're on social and you go check us out on Instagram or TikTok, we actually did a California roadshow where we had a translucent 6-foot by 4-foot acorn filled with pennies that was driven on a flatbed truck. And we took it to UCLA, LMU, and one other California-based school that I'm blanking on, but all kind of in the LA area. And it was our ways to just really engage with that community and give them the opportunity to learn more about the brand, engage with the brand, but ultimately also it was a giveaway, so the person or people that gets the correct amount of spare change in this massive acorn actually won that amount. It was like thousands of dollars, the exact amount was like thousands of dollars, just as like no one could actually physically think that was on a flatbed truck, right? And so when I think about where we're at, which I'll call it V1 for this semester, and what excites me is the V2s, 3s, and beyond, and continue to deepen our partnerships on campus with the likes of UT and other big name universities and logos. It's really exciting because we're barely beginning to even scratch the surface. And so for us, as we continue to layer in and become more sophisticated in our strategy beyond what we've done to date to kind of have this proof of concept out in the wild, it's really exciting. And so as we go to 2025, we literally will be across more campuses. Maybe the acorn will be bigger, maybe there'll be more money in that acorn. Yeah, so really the sky's kind of the limit, but we're definitely progressing towards it.
It's great. Timing kind of lines up pretty well with rev sharing coming up too, so. Ashwin, anybody familiar with HEB's brand understands community being at the core of your ethos, right? So how are you integrating your partnership with Maddie into those community efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lisa mentioned it's about being authentic. It helps that Maddie grew up in Katie, I think, and she, was shopping at HEB with her grandparents, and so she knows the brand well. For us, Texas is our home state. It's our only state. So it helps that because it's our only state, and we have 150 plus thousand people that work at HEB, and 75% of them work, actually more, 75, but call it 80% of them work in our stores, and most of them live within 10 to 15 miles of the store that they work at. So if you think about it that way, it's in our best interest to serve our communities because we live there, we live here. We're not from out of state. So because community is an important part of what we do, it's just who we are. We want to serve Texas and we want to serve Texans. All the athletes that we work with just have to be good people to begin with. Yeah, like if you're a great athlete, but you're an a-hole outside of the field, I don't want to work with you. Right? We don't need you. Right? So that fundamental, you have to be a good person On top of being great at what you do is just the cost of working with us, right? And then it happens to be that again, Addie is just an incredible person. So it's, how do we get her into Girls and Boys Club of Austin to inspire all these young people that she's already inspired? Like all you have to do is just look at the people, look at the girls that support the volleyball team when you go to a game, right? And the number of people that want our autograph or want to get a picture taken with her or the other athletes that we have. So it happens to be that she's bought in on being part of the community, so it works that way. But it goes if we didn't have the reputation of being in the community and we try and do these one-offs with these athletes, people will roll their eyes. So I think that's why.
And I assume as you're going through the process and you're thinking about the different assets you're going to include in the deal with an athlete, that's table stakes, right? That's going to be included. That's great. All right, so I'm going to turn to the audience group here. Can you all share your perspective on working with macro level talent versus micro influencers and the times where you'll turn to one, the other, or both?
Sure, go first. It's a kind of a fine little math equation, if you will, but macro used to be the glitz, the glamour. When you heard the word influencer, that's what everyone thought of. Big paychecks and tons of followers. But I think that the landscape has definitely changed. Obviously, the macro influencer is fantastic for a larger scale brand campaign, that general brand awareness, the brand buzz. But what we see, if you really want engagement and to move the needle, is the micro influencers where it's at. I think especially for our consumer, they want to relate to the people, the partners that we're working with, the partners and the other brands, and they see through the macro level. And I think authenticity is the name of the game today. It's kind of, you see through the one and done partnership. So I think when you can really build and leverage those voices and integrate into your stores and into campaigns, into events, and into leveraging your brand voice in a 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week kind of way, micro is really the way to go.
Yeah, we've done and continue to do a mix of that. Our largest marquee partnership for a custom debit card is with Wayne "The Rock" Johnson, so we have something called the MyDeal debit card. And if you go to our website, check it out, it's a very unique black debit card that feels like a fancy card, but it's not a credit card, it's a debit card, it's not a credit card company, and so you can check that out. But then we've also done some talent deals where we're working with some of the top gaming talent in the gaming space, right, with a company called 100 Thieves, and then we're working with some of the top talent in the financial influencer space, right, some of the top female and male talent that we get to work with on our behalf. But I think to your point around micro, I think one of our strongest assets as a company, where we see a lot of success and growth from, is actually through our customers who are in themselves micro influencers, because they're helping thrive our referral program. And these are people that literally on their own are telling their friends, their families, communities about Acorns on their own to join the ecosystem and to join the club and get part of it. And I think it's a really unique thing of having these sort of soldiers in the field, if you will, to think about the grassroots enablement of that. And I think there's always going to be way more micro talent than there will be macros of the Wayne Johnsons of the world. So really for us, it's having a healthy mix and balance. And obviously, as we gear up for some bigger launches and rebrands, we do need the bigger megaphone sometimes to have that sort of validity in the market for the offering and really to resonate with it, given more of the second eyes that we're going after. But then for me, when I look out into the world, I'm always thinking, what are the pockets of niches that we can tap into? Because there's, my belief is there's niches, riches in the niches. And so thinking through, what does that look like for a very peculiar hobby or interest or topic, and what can I test that's going to be far more manageable versus let me do a full blown out campaign with some audience who've never touched it, and all of a sudden I'm yeah, that didn't work, that was a lot of money, right? So it's really kind of being strategic in those bets and investments.
I'm going to be honest with you. Here's why. We have had a lot of success at the macro, the superstar athletes, and we didn't we gave Maddie the same treatment that we gave Victor Wembanyama, and we gave Maddie the same treatment that we gave CJ Stroud, right? From a production standpoint, we spent, almost $1 million just on the production, right? No different than what we would do with CJ or Victor. On top of that, we spent another few $1 million in media, no different than what we would do. So we have a formula for macro in terms of what the macro does for the brand at the highest brand level. And that's worked very well, and that's the next challenge is, okay, who's the next macro? Like if I look at UT, I don't know yet, right? Again, that's why Maddie was such a unicorn, because she was so good, and she's so good. I don't know who the next macro is. But I also think that, one of the biggest things on the other side is we have a lot of Aggies that work at HEB. And I cannot tell you how many people tell me, okay, what are you doing with A&M? What are you doing in Lubbock? What are you doing in San Antonio? I'm like, man, I don't know. But do you have a Maddie Skinner? So on the micro side, that's what I worry about is I know what works for sure from a macro standpoint because I have 20 years of doing it at the highest level. And I know what it does for the brand and I know what it does for the community. Do I really, I have members of my team here that sit back there, and that's an active debate we're having this morning on the micro. I'm like, do I really need the micro athlete to sell more butter tortillas? I don't know. Maybe not. But so that's why I'm saying I don't know what the micro approach for us is going to be, because I think the complexity arises with micro when it comes to your brand. All you need is one person to do something, not great in the age of social media that amplifies. And look, you gotta understand that these kids are 18, 19, 20, and they have a lot of responsibility on top of all the fan bases wanting them to win and perform at the highest level of the league. So they have a lot of pressure. So that's not to say that we won't do anything micro. What all these guys have said, I think micro can help in certain categories and certain moments. But I like the macro better because that's what we've done, and I know for a fact that it works in a major way. And maybe I have multiple macro athletes, right? That's an approach that we take, where it's not just one Madison Skinner, maybe it's a couple people, maybe it's 3. So I don't know what the approach for us is going to be next year. I'm a UT grad, so this was even better. So when the Aggies asked me to do, I'm like, maybe you guys should win first. But that said, it's I'm a fan of the macro more than the micro. It doesn't mean that we want to do micro.
And I think one of the things about what we're working with our athletes, like I said, the Texas one is in the inner circle of the athletics department and understanding them. We know who our most famous macro athletes are. If you go anywhere and you're talking to anybody about sports, they can name Quinn Ewers, QB1. You can name QB1s at a lot of different schools. They probably can name Maddie Skinner because, like Ashwin said, 3-time national champion, up in the top 3 Honda Player of the Year across all sports, and lost to Caitlin Clark. So you have that kind of fame that's out there. And there's certain people that sometimes it's because they're on TV more. Football's on TV more. And that's why they're more known. You guys are going to meet some of macro and micro influencers. We have women's basketball, the number 5, number 9 player in the nation right now. So you have somebody that was in the Caitlin Clark's graduated. We have the number 5 person in that same range. You might not know her name, but I want you to after tonight in Madison Booker. She is that kind of person that's out there that's going to have some of that fame, if you will. But the micro influencers, we have the number 1 men's tennis player in the nation. I'm pretty sure you don't know who Sebastian Corsi is, but there's somebody like that. We have people that are Olympians that you're going to see some of those tonight. They might even be wearing their medals. Medal winners in our Olympic room from our swimmers. But that's a real micro niche. That they're not the Maddie Skinner, Quinn Ewers, but they are a micro niche for whatever that brand is that fits in the swimming world. So I think that's kind of fun to look at across all of our different athletes that you get to pick macro or micro.
when thinking about your influencer marketing mix and student athletes as influencers, how do you balance authenticity, which typically leads to a little more engagement, versus celebrity and reach?
I think it goes both ways, and there's a time and place for everything. And as you mentioned, we're a multi-generational brand, so we are constantly adjusting the different levers at all times. So I think there's a moment, like when I look at holiday, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day as predominantly female jewelry brand, those are the moments where we are making big buzz, where we want the big name, where we're running TV campaigns, huge paid ad campaigns, so you can leverage that. But then you have all the other moments around graduation and Women's History Month. Game day is huge for Kendra Scott, being we are so involved in sports across the country. And that's where we really get those micro moments, because that is boots on the ground, and that is the platform where we're able to organically integrate to our communities and talk about our philanthropic programs, give back to individual schools and athletics programs, amplify young women's voices. And so it's kind of a little bit of both. Nothing is black and white or always on or always off. It's kind of yes and it's going at all times. It's just which one are you turning up louder at which time?
Yeah, I think for us it's just aligning with the authentic and trusted voices, and one of the things that's been key for us both this year and as we move to next is podcasting. And so aligning ourselves with relevant, culturally relevant talent that's trusted, so the likes of Alex Cooper, Theo Vaughn, etc., is really key for us, because these are trusted sources and figures that are in their space, very well regarded, very well trusted, and credible. And so I think for us, as we continue to expand our reach and our business, it's really critical to ensure that we're aligning with those types of individuals and beyond to continue to get the word out about the brand and continue to grow the business. And so for us, it's really a matter of, is there alignment? Does it make sense? And if so, how? And always understanding that as best as we can to fit the brand values, etc., is going to be really key as we continue to pick new talent beyond the current mix that we're currently working with.
What do you guys think?
I think one of the things that is important about this brand, we get contacted for access to our athletes every day. And we get brands that say, hey, can you see if so-and-so wants to work with our brand? And I'm like, how did you pick that person? And it's, because he or she has X number of Instagram followers, or she's really pretty and we saw one of these posts, or whatever that kind of esoteric type analysis is. What is so much more meaningful is when you say, this is what is important from achieving a campaign. This is the reach we're trying to get to. And we say, who we think of might be the best person for that campaign would be blank. And they're like, well, we've never heard of that person. Okay, well, that person might have 15,000 Instagram followers, but that person's going to get a more detailed, authentic reach into the market that makes more sense. And we then have the power to boost that through our Texas One brand and our kind of add-on promotion of tapping into how many times that person is in the media as a Texas Longhorn, and then how do we also amplify that authenticity by saying this is actually more meaningful. It's not one that you scratch your head and say, oh, I guess they got another NIL deal. That's not what is going to be most meaningful. It is attaching something to the campaign that makes sense and trying to work with what's out there for the micro and macro influencers.
Thank you. All right, so we've got 2 minutes left. We'll try and keep this last part brief, but if there was only one thing the audience would do as a result of today's conversation, what would it be?
I would say find a new voice to amplify. There's so many voices out there, and I think that we're just waiting to uncover this whole new plethora of ways in which to work with new and different people. So find a new voice.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that in terms of, the way I view the opportunities that I have to pursue for the company. It's trying to do the unconventional, and whether it's directly with talent or, I had this idea a couple months ago and I'm actually trying to make it come to life of like partnering with the national pizza chain on Pi Day, just because I like math and I like pizza, and we have something that can tie in nicely with financial literacy, and I'm like, why not, and see what can happen. And so when I think about things sometimes that don't make any sense, I try to bring them to life to make sense, and so it's always at least shoot the shot and see what could make sense to tie in ultimately at the end of the day to our goals, but also the partners' goals, and then also more importantly, the customer experience. So that way it's like, hey, I think of that. It's like, great, like we're trying to deliver delight there and making sure it all kind of feels cohesive, even though you would think pairing pizza with financial wellness might not make sense on the surface, but like if we could tie in deeper, that's kind of things I'm like constantly thinking about.
I would say take your time and don't ride the wave. The Texas brand is one of the most powerful brands in the world. It's not going anywhere. If you rush into something that's not part of your company strategy and you don't get the results that you need, or you have risks somewhere, you don't want one bad strategy that you set to sort of set you back. So take the time in picking the activations, take the time to pick the right athletes, ensure that it fits with what you're trying to do as a company. Because if you can't do that, you're going to have people rolling the eyes at you and say, okay, this makes no sense whatsoever, and that may set you back in the future. So I would say take the time to make sure that whatever you decide to do fits with what you're trying to do with the brand as a company, and then figure out what the best way would be to leverage what I believe is probably one of the most powerful brands in the world, which is the Texas brand.
I would say my biggest takeaway would be contact Texas One if you want access to the athletes. We respect them as a student and an athlete. And our athletes get DM'd on Instagram. They get contacted by a lot of different analytic or fulfillment platforms on the day they have a test, on the day they're playing a game. And we know we literally have blackout calendars for all sports, all 21 sports. We know when they're available. We know if the brands have worked with us, we already have them plotted, like literally in the coach's calendar. We know when the coach is going to be willing to say, yes, this person can, the day after a game, be available at 7 in the morning, or there's no way that person needs to be in the training room. And making sure that the right time and the right campaign makes sense, and coordinating that to the greatest effectiveness with us, I think is what makes a difference.
Well, thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for listening.